At 5:32 p.m. on January 31st, 2026, exactly 7.5 hours before a masked figure would come to her front door, Nancy Guthrie climbed into an Uber outside her Catalina Foothills home. She was going to her daughter Annie's house for dinner, a family evening, a normal Saturday. The driver was cooperative, the ride was unremarkable. Nothing unusual about her demeanor, nothing unusual about what she said. She was just an 84-year-old woman going to have dinner with her daughter. And somewhere, in a car, on a phone, through a window, from across the street, someone was watching that Uber pull away from her house, noting the time, noting the absence, counting the hours until she came back. Because the FBI has now confirmed they have the video from inside that Uber. They have watched every second of Nancy Guthrie's last normal moment before her world ended. And what the investigative reporter who reviewed the footage said should stop every single person watching this video completely cold. Not because of what was in the video, but because of what was not. There was nothing unusual, nothing said, nothing done, nothing that gave Nancy Guthrie or anyone watching any indication that in less than 8 hours she would be gone. And that is the most devastating detail of this entire investigation, because it means that whoever was coming for Nancy Guthrie that night was so careful, so patient, so perfectly concealed that even the last video of her alive contains absolutely no warning of what was coming. None at all. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 49 days. She is 84 years old. She requires daily heart medication. Her pacemaker is still transmitting somewhere in the world. And today, on day 49, 3 new developments have emerged simultaneously that are rewriting what investigators and the public thought they knew about the night of February 1st, 2026. The last Uber ride, the security gate that should have been impossible to breach from the outside, and the motive that nobody wanted to say out loud, but that former FBI agents are now saying plainly and directly. Today's episode goes places that no other channel has gone, and by the end of it, I think you will understand this case in a way that you have not before. First question for you right now. When you heard that the FBI reviewed the Uber footage and found nothing unusual about Nancy's demeanor, what did that tell you? Did it reassure you, or did it make you more afraid? Drop your answer in the comments. January 31st, March 21, 2026. Tucson, Arizona. Day 49. Here is everything we now know and what it means. Development 1. The last Uber ride. At 5:32 p.m. on January 31st, Nancy was picked up from her home by an Uber driver and taken to daughter Annie Guthrie's residence for dinner and an evening with family. Her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, drove her back home shortly before 10 p.m., with garage door records confirming she arrived safely that night. Hours later, she was gone. The Uber driver fully cooperated with investigators, turning over all in-vehicle footage to law enforcement. The footage captured everything said and done inside the car from the moment Nancy was picked up. Investigative reporter Dave Mack, speaking on Crime Stories with Nancy Grace, said authorities found the ride to be completely unremarkable. The Uber driver turned over all the video from inside the vehicle. This was looked at by the investigation. They found nothing of substance of anything of Nancy Guthrie in the vehicle. Anything she said, her demeanor, nothing was mentioned. Nothing unusual. A regular pickup and drop-off, a woman going to have dinner with her daughter. That is all the last known video of Nancy Guthrie alive contains. And that, in its own devastating way, tells us something profoundly important. It tells us that Nancy had absolutely no idea what was coming. She was not afraid, she was not anxious, she was not trying to tell anyone anything. She was just Nancy, going to Annie's for dinner, coming home, going to sleep. And somewhere in the hours that followed, while she slept, someone who had been watching her for weeks made their final preparations. The Uber driver has been cleared. There was nothing irregular about the ride. The Uber video is not a clue. It is a farewell, and Nancy did not even know she was saying goodbye. Development 2. The second suspect was already inside the house. This is the development that changes the entire architecture of what happened on the night of February 1st, and it has been hiding in plain sight since the very beginning. Authorities are said to be focusing on the security gate on Nancy Guthrie's front door. The security gate in front of the door would be nearly impossible to breach from the outside, leading some law enforcement experts to believe a second suspect was already in the house with Guthrie when a masked figure was seen in surveillance video that has been widely distributed. Read that again. The security gate on Nancy Guthrie's front door, the gate that sits between the outer and inner door, is nearly impossible to breach from the outside, which means Porch Guy, the masked figure captured on the doorbell camera, could not have entered that house alone by force, not through that gate, not without someone on the inside opening it for him, or, and this is the theory that law enforcement experts are now seriously pursuing, not without a second person who was already in that house before Porch Guy ever arrived, a second suspect, inside, waiting, in the dark, while Nancy slept. Think about what that means for the 41-minute gap, the 25 minutes of unrecorded activity between the camera going dark and the motion detector firing. If there was a second suspect already in that house, then Porch Guy was not alone in that building for 41 minutes. He was the outside man, the distraction, the person the camera was meant to capture. And the person who actually had access to Nancy, who was already inside, already knew the layout, already knew where she slept, was someone the doorbell camera never showed at all. Someone who got into that house before February 1st, someone who had a reason to be there, someone Nancy may have let in herself without ever knowing what they were there to do. Development 3. The staging house next door. Police are looking at an empty house in the neighborhood where Nancy Guthrie lived. Retired Pima County SWAT Commander Bob Krieger said that the house could have been used as a home base or staging location for the suspect or suspects. They could look at that location as a possible home base or staging location for the suspect or suspects. It would provide them a cover story to be at those locations at different times. The home would allow them to stay a little bit more under the radar, to see the activity of the neighborhood, to see the comings and goings of people, the timing of things of all the people, including Nancy. A staging house, a base of operations, a place where the suspects could watch Nancy's routine from close range, her Uber rides, her family dinners, her Sunday church live streams, her daily walks, without ever appearing suspicious, because in a neighborhood full of construction and renovation, a vacant house with people coming and going is completely unremarkable, until it isn't. Development 4. The revenge motive. Former FBI Special Agent Harry Trombitis believes the motive could be revenge, anger, or unknown, as kidnappings for ransom are uncommon and the prospects of finding Nancy Guthrie alive are decreasing. Revenge, not money, not ransom, not opportunistic crime. Revenge against an 84-year-old woman who spent her life going to church, watching her grandchildren grow up, and having dinner with her family on Saturday evenings. What could Nancy Guthrie have possibly done to deserve revenge? The answer, if this theory is correct, is nothing, because the revenge would not be against Nancy, it would be against Savannah, against the platform, against the spotlight, against the fame and the reach that comes with being one of the most recognizable faces on American morning television. Reports indicate Savannah is questioning how much her spotlight put her family's safety at risk. That sentence, read slowly and carefully, is the most heartbreaking thing in this entire investigation. A woman who spent decades working to reach the pinnacle of her profession is now asking herself whether her success made her mother a target. Now, here is the detail that connects all three of these developments in a way that I have not seen any outlet properly explain. If there was a second suspect inside Nancy's house before Nancy left for Annie's on January 31st, then someone had prior access to Nancy Guthrie's home. Prior access means a key, a code, or an entry Nancy herself authorized. And prior authorized entry means someone Nancy trusted, or someone who had been in that house in a professional capacity, a contractor, maintenance worker, delivery person, someone connected to the construction on the nearby vacant property. The FBI is now asking residents for the names of construction workers and contractors who had been working in the neighborhood. That is not a coincidence. the staging house next door, the construction workers, the prior access to the front gate, the second suspect already inside. These 4 details, taken together, form a picture of an operation that required not just planning and surveillance, but physical access to Nancy Guthrie's home before the night of February 1st. And physical access, authorized or otherwise, leaves traces in records, in memories, in the minds of neighbors who saw a van parked outside or a face they didn't recognize coming and going. The FBI knows this, and they are following every thread. Second question for you right now. If a second suspect was already in Nancy Guthrie's home when Porch Guy arrived, how do you think they got in? A key? A code? Someone she trusted? Drop your theory in the comments. The public response to these 3 simultaneous developments has been the most analytically complex reaction of the entire investigation. True crime communities immediately